Welcome to the Happy Disruptors Podcast. If you're a creative thinker with an unconventional approach to your industry, you just might be a happy disruptor. Join your friends at the Great Outdoors Foundation for honest conversations about tackling critical issues like conservation with an uncritical disposition. If you like to smile and get things done, this is the podcast for you.
Hello, and welcome back to the Happy Disruptors Podcast. I'm Kaitie Hartman.
And I'm Hannah Inman.
And today we are joined by the esteemed Dr. Claire Hruby. Dr. Hruby, thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you guys for having me. It's been a lively summer in the water quality world. My name's Claire Hruby. I've been at Drake University now, Environmental Science Department, for 2 years, officially 2 years almost. And my work has been in water quality for more than 20 years now. I worked at the Department of Natural Resources for 20 years. And in the Environmental Science Department, I teach a bunch of different classes. Most of them relate to water. And we've got, I think, 9 research projects happening simultaneously.
Just a couple things
just
going on.
Just a couple things, yep. I got 5 student employees this summer, and we're getting a lot of stuff done and exploring the state.
Yeah. So water quality has been in the news a lot lately. What are some key takeaways that you want to emphasize as a longtime researcher and what we would consider a water quality expert?
Well, thanks. Well, I want to start with the non-scientific stuff.
Yeah.
I think I'm just impressed by the amount of interest this year, right? I mean, I have done my work in the shadows for a really long time, and the small group of people have been really interested for a long time, but everyone seems to be asking questions now, wondering what's in their water, how to test it, what to do, and so we're just having this moment, and there's a lot of emotion associated with it. People are scared, people have strong opinions about what should be done. I'm glad we're having the conversation. I think this is how it should be all the time, right?
Yeah.
Not the emotion part, but the discussion. What can we do better? What have we done? Letting people know what's actually happening, because we're still catching up on all the information right now. It feels like. So people, are still learning what is nitrate, right?
Yeah. Yes.
What does E. coli mean? How do these standards come about? So there's just a lot of catching up to do. And with that, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And, I shouldn't be shocked, but I am, just everywhere, all the time. And so it's cool to get to talk about it, maybe fix some of those misunderstandings. Along the way.
Why do you think that there is more interest? Why do you think this spike in nitrates has caused more of a conversation than before? Because we were talking before. This has happened before.
It has happened before. And in fact, it was happening 20 years ago when I started at the DNR, right? The people who were retiring when I came along were talking about how difficult these issues are to solve, and how maybe they hadn't gotten as far in their career as they thought they would, right? So it's been around for a long time, and my students are in their 20s, maybe. And so it's always been like this for them, but I tell them it hasn't, there was a time when this wasn't an issue. But to answer your question, Hannah, I think we're at a moment where everything is just bigger and more topsy-turvy. Governmentally, economically, socially, we're just in these big change.
Yeah.
And I think that can be an opportunity. I'm an endless optimist. I'm surrounded by pessimists, and they will laugh at me. But I think it's an opportunity to think about doing things differently. Yeah. I'm really sad that the scientists at the federal government are losing their jobs. We need them. We need their sensors in the water. We need their expertise. We need that funding to continue.
Yeah.
But when we have these disruptions, maybe the way we do agriculture isn't perfect. Maybe, we need to think about our food system and our energy system and climate change, a lot more than we have been. So I think, not being able to water your lawn is, right, right, not that big a deal. But, is it safe to make formula out of the tap for my kid? Right. I was telling you earlier, my, stepdaughters are in nursing. They were handing out bottled water at the hospital on the cardiology floor just to be safe. Not that there's necessarily a lot of science, and I'm not a medical expert. Please don't. Right. But that's an issue. But just out of abundance of caution, people were changing their practices. And so it's up there. And now it's midsummer and people are getting in the water a lot. And so the nitrate issue and the recreation issue are happening at the same time.
Yeah. Well, that is like a great lead into our next question, which is, if you were explaining water quality as it relates to drinking water, what would you want our listeners to know?
So, nitrate is the big concern, but it's not the only concern. The standard has been 10 for a long time. And if you dig back in, the papers on blue baby syndrome are from the 50s and 60s. Science evolves, right? So we're learning new things. We're learning about cancer. We have this whole, cancer initiative, cancer statistics in the state at the same time. There are things that concern me about nitrate at levels lower than the standard. But there's a process for that. If government is working, there would be toxicologists and folks, looking closely at the nitrate standard and figuring out if it needs to be lower and what the impacts of that would be. I've tested water quality in small towns in the state for a long time, and we would bankrupt everyone if we lowered that standard, right? I mean, the small towns have a hard time with serving out water as it is, right? If they needed more treatment, that would be a big deal. So everybody just needs to come together and figure out what's the best approach moving forward. Personally, I've had half of my thyroid out since I moved to Des Moines. I can't tell you what caused that, right? We don't have a lot of cases of blue baby syndrome, but there are, increased risks associated with nitrate for long-term use. So from a drinking water perspective, I worry. I also know about all the other things that might be out there. Right. We use so many chemicals, and they have great uses, right? We put out fires, and those same chemicals are forever chemicals, and they cause problems, right? So we're surrounded by a lot of those, and it takes a lot of time and effort and money and energy to assess them. Right. And you can't do experiments on people, right? Right. So it's really hard to understand what the epidemiology of these things are and what the long-term health effects are. So when you're steeped in it like I am and you read papers every day, you worry a lot, but stress will kill you too, right? So you have to try to get some perspective. We're doing great compared to third world countries, right? I mean, we live really well, and we do have standards and we do have regulations. But we can do better.
Yeah. So at the same point, what would you want people to know about water quality as it relates to recreation?
Yes. Well, this is my baby, right?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So nitrate is not a direct concern. If nitrates are high, go ahead, get in the river, get in your kayak. That's not a concern. But we're in an agricultural state, in an urban environment with maybe some leaky sewers and other, things happening, there's always risk. And even if we monitored every day, we would still have a hard time telling you what your risks are. There's risks, there's been questions about beaches lately, and, if you get into a pool, it's chlorinated. Yeah. And you're with 100 other people and you hope the chlorine works, right? But in a lake, that's not happening. So this focus on agriculture when it comes to nitrate gets sort of transformed into the cause of all of our problems at beaches, and they're just not the same.
Right.
That's true.
So, that's part of the complexity of all this. I study E. coli. I never knew, right? Growing up, going to college, that I would be an expert in E. coli. That's not what I was thinking I was going to be doing.
We're so glad that you are, though.
Yeah, right. Can we say poop on a podcast?
Yes,
right. So, but I've been studying the E. coli, and I had questions about halfway through my time at DNR. We were working on policy related to manure on frozen ground. And one of the pieces of data that we had was that there's a lot of E. coli when you have runoff during the winter. And I started to ask questions like, well, is it still there in the summer? Is how long does it survive in a river? And so I got my PhD and learned a lot about the transport of those bacteria, viruses in the water. And then while I was still at DNR, we took that and we started looking at beaches. And what we started finding, even while I was still at the DNR, is that E. coli is not a perfect indicator. So, and even less of a perfect indicator at beaches than in rivers.
Interesting.
So, a lot of that information, what we found is in this report that just came out from Polk County, the Central Iowa Source Water Research Assessment, which I always get the acronym wrong, but there's a chapter on recreation in there, and we talk about, E. coli is just an indicator.
Yeah.
And there are places where we found a lot of E. coli at beaches, and when we started looking for the actual pathogens, we didn't find any.
Interesting.
And other places where we do, right? So it just turns out it's hard to assess risk. When I moved to Drake, I'd been working already with the folks at Polk County Conservation. They're out there collecting great data. We have really great partners in this state.
Yeah,
you guys
absolutely.
know that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's just the county, the conservation boards, the watershed improvement, groups. There's just a lot of people working on it. And they were supportive of assessing the risk in streams. And we did find pathogens in our streams. And then the thing that surprised me the most was that we really found a lot of indicators of human waste in our urban area.
Right.
So that's the thing that I think we're still trying to wrestle with. What does that mean? Is that wastewater systems that are working but not well enough? Is that we have really old sewer lines and they're right next to our stormwater and there's just leakage, kind of cross-contamination happening? So there's work to do in the urban areas when it comes to water quality as well, right? We certainly have a lot of work to do in the rest of the state when it comes to nitrate. But here in Des Moines, for the recreation perspective, I think looking at human waste sources and what those mean and what the risks are. So,
yeah.
So I'm going to go off our little script a little bit. So can you talk about, we've talked a lot about risk.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to break this down because someone was like, okay, I need you to just make it more. So E. coli, poop, right?
Yes.
There's different sources, right? Goose, all that stuff. And when you're doing a grab sample, it depends on what's in the water, but also what just happened in the water.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You think of birds and things like that.
We've started testing for deer and raccoons.
Rain
and
events,
all
like
of
those
that.
can impact.
Dogs.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that was part of the issue at Easter Lake was a lot of runoff from dog waste, in the neighboring communities. I think that's been somewhat taken care of and resolved. But there's a lot of different sources. And so now there's technology to be able to it's expensive, but you can source that to sort of identify. And that's what you're talking about with the human, the human waste. So when you see an increase in E. coli, not necessarily the pathogens, or even if you do see an increase in the pathogens, what does that mean to the daily user? If I'm going out there to recreate with my kids, go kayaking, canoeing, what does that mean?
Well, so this is one of those common misunderstandings I feel like that's out there.
Yeah.
The common misunderstanding is if you're below the standard, 235 mpn per 100 mil, you're right, this magic number, right? Then people think you're safe. And if you're above that magic number, people think you're going to die, right?
Yeah.
Like that's, don't touch it, right?
I mean, you're kind of, but we seriously had a conversation with a member of the press, this is years ago, that they really thought that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. What the number means statistically based on research at lakes, near Chicago, like Great Lakes near big cities, so not Iowa lakes.
Right.
But statistically, it means that your risk is 36 illnesses per 1,000 swimming events. Statistically, based on, other places and studies where they looked at reported illness and the levels. So if you're a little bit above the standard, and you believe that relationship, right, that E. coli is an indicator of risk, then maybe your risk is 40. The worst one we have is in the 50s.
Okay.
Right? Based on actually looking at the pathogens. Right?
And that would be 50 per 1,000.
50 illnesses per 1,000.
And can you talk about what illness means
as well? Diarrhea. There we go. I said it. Right. Again, so I don't want to belittle this because there are rare cases of really serious health consequences, right? An infection in your gut might just make you uncomfortable for a couple days and want to stay close to the toilet. Yeah. Right? And you lose work time and it's inconvenient and it, is stressful and all of the rest, but you'll be okay. There are cases with these pathogens that can cause much more serious illness, but it's really rare. So technically from the research, the illness is observable symptom.
Gastrointestinal.
Yes. A symptomatic, right? We can get infections and our immune systems go to work and we don't feel anything. It's not symptomatic.
Right.
But symptomatic infection. So, but again, every once in a while it's really serious. And we want to do our best to minimize that risk.
Yeah.
But I'm a recreator.
Yeah.
I love getting in the water. I don't, muddy water is just what it is, right? That doesn't bother me. I let my kid get in the water. For me, I know we're healthy. I know we've played outside all of our lives. We've been exposed to things. We have pets, right? I mean, there's poop in our lives, right? Right. You send your kid to daycare, you get sick, right? I mean, we eat salads and we know there are outbreaks related to the food we eat sometimes, right? I'm willing to take a certain amount of risk, but that's me. I will not tell you what is, the risk for you. And if you have underlying disease, if you have an open wound, then I stay out of the water. Yeah. So, that's, do you drive fast? Right? We know that increases our risk. Yes. So, those are personal choices. I love getting in the water. It's worth the risk to me most of the time. Yeah.
I'm so glad that you are helping to provide some context, Dr. Hruby, because that's a really important piece in all of this, right? Like you can look at the data and in and of itself, it's like, okay, I understand that it's above the EPA limit or that safe line. Well, I'll say the safe in quotations. Yes. But you have been working with water, studying water your entire career. What are some like practical behavior modifications or what do you do to mitigate risk either with drinking water? I know you mentioned your stepdaughters and they're in the nursing field. But then also just as an individual living in Iowa, drinking water, recreating in our water. Tell us a little bit about that.
well, my friends at Waterworks are going to kill me again. But I do have an under-counter reverse osmosis or, multiple filtration system. I only use it for drinking water, right? So, everything else we do with water in the house, I don't worry about it. But I have that little, it was the soap hole in the counter, right? Yeah. And now it's my little drinking water hole. I do that because I want to limit exposure, not get rid of it, not, but just lower it. And really for times like this, right? I mean, it's not all the time. Des Moines Waterworks does a great job. Most of the time, the nitrate levels are a lot lower than they are. But when they're getting close to that standard, I'm glad I have that system.
Yeah.
And for people who ask me, that's what I recommend. If you carry around gallons a day, if you're an athlete, you want to put some electrolytes
back in there.
Yeah, you need some of those minerals, right? You can actually kind of dehydrate yourself by having super, clean water, right? But so I, it's to minimize exposure, not to get rid of it. That's what I do at home. What was the rest of your question? I got distracted.
For recreation. So you mentioned that too. How do you? It's kind of like getting in a car, right? You put a seatbelt on. Yep. That's going to help mitigate your risk. You follow traffic laws. That's going to mitigate your risk. What are some of those behavior modifications that you can do when you are, going out to paddle?
Don't paddle when it's flooding.
That's a great start. Right? That's a great start.
Right. Follow the signage, put your life jacket on, know your skill level, whether it's as a swimmer or a paddler, right? I really hope the gauging station, the USGS gauging stations continue to be funded, because I use that to make a determination of, is the flow too high? Am I going to be bumping along? If the flow's too low, I'm going to be bumping along the bottom. That's no fun either, right? So, so knowing that before you go, knowing your route, carrying your sanitizer, if you're going to snack along the way, the sanitizer will help a lot. So, in that way, I think we all learned a lot from COVID, right? Like, just
hope, yes.
Kind of what our own risk tolerance is, for one, right? Right. But also, how we can just minimize that. I used to say, the warm ham sandwich with the mayo that's, been out for too long is a risk too.
Right. Yeah.
True. But that just take those precautions. And again, I don't go out if I have a big open wound, right?
Yeah.
They can get infected so much more easily than something else. If you're in a lake, I hate to even bring this up, someone will get mad at me, but I would wear nose plugs if you're the kind of person who's jumping off the dock or a trampoline, or really kind of we have one case of that brain-eating amoeba in the state in southern Iowa. It's a warm water creature, and it has to go up your nose to cause a problem with force, right? But I'd put a nose clip on, 25 cents, right? I mean, that is just a precaution, and then there's just a lot less worry. But I love getting in the water, and it's worth it to me, so I just take those precautions.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that, and I think you really hit the nail on the head when you mentioned, we're all going to have varying risk tolerances, right? Yeah. So even you could take every precaution necessary, and you still might say, this isn't the right decision for me personally. Yeah. It's the same situation where you see people in the river, would not recommend without a life jacket on, right? Like that is
your physical safety is the thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is way up there as far as especially with kids, right? So, yeah, all of those things are important. I think, the misconception is that there'll be a flashing light or a warning if it's not safe. And the river conditions just change all the time. It's not possible,
Yeah.
right? Same thing when you go to a restaurant. No one is, telling you, oh my God, there's,
Right.
a high risk today because the salad is,
right.
Well,
okay. So I remember an anecdote, and not an illustration that you used one time when presenting the data, and you were talking about, some of our creeks have a higher propensity for the higher levels of pathogens, right, per milliliter, because they have less flow, all of those things are contributing. And you said, common sense is going to be your best guide, because if you walk up to a creek and it smells
go away.
terrible,
Yeah.
perhaps we should not be getting in said creek. Or if you are a poor swimmer and you're getting into water that you could potentially be ingesting, maybe that's not the best locale for you,
all of these things are true and important, and people need to inform themselves. On the other side, we need to do better to make sure those risks go lower.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Especially those conditions like the low flow that you were talking about, when the water level is really low, there's no mud in it, and it looks clear, and you think, everything's great. Yeah. And it turns out that there's one source leaking in, and it's not getting diluted. That can be a time when there's more risk than you would think.
Yeah.
And so those are the kinds of things that we can do something about. Absolutely. We can find leaky systems, right? Mm-hmm. We can upgrade our wastewater. We can fence our cattle out of the stream. Mm-hmm. We can do things about those. Yeah. I don't know if I can do anything about the kid with a diaper next to me at the beach. but there are things we can tackle, and we should be tackling to minimize those risks.
So tell me about some of the most interesting water quality findings that you've either been a part of or that you've come across.
Again, someone will get mad at me somewhere. That's the business. I was surprised how much raccoon poop was in the water, I'm afraid to say.
Raccoons were coming for you.
Yeah, I did not expect that. But I probably should have.
Are they like washing their hands in the? Can I say?
Spitting and no. I think they're in their stormwater systems. I think they're just in the sewers.
Oh
Again,
gosh,
I'm a serious scientist, so let me think about this.
I feel like that's the most Iowa thing ever. Really, we have sewer raccoons.
We have raccoons.
It feels a la Parks and Recreation.
It does.
Yeah. Oh my God. Boy, you guys. One of the things that we've started doing in my lab that has just kind of blown my mind is looking through the microscope. We haven't talked about cyanotoxins or, algae blooms much. It's not a huge concern in our lakes or rivers recently. Every once in a while.
Okay, we're going to do a timeout.
Yep, good. All
right. So explain for my mom's probably watching this. Explain for Linda.
Hi, Linda. Hi, Linda. Yeah. So when we have too many nutrients in the water, things like nitrogen and phosphorus that we all need, we get from our food, right? Plants need to grow. When you're gardening, I don't know, does Linda garden?
Linda
she
does
probably
garden.
fertilizes her plants, right? When there's too much of that in the water, it can help algae grow. And there are certain kinds of algae that when they die and their cells break open, they release a toxin. And especially at certain lakes in Iowa, right? You see the beach warnings are either for E. coli or this other thing, right? Microcystin, and that's one of those toxins. Okay. And so if the water looks like pea soup or is blue-green, that's another no-go. That's another no-no, right? That's a warning sign. But the thing that's kind of difficult about predicting the level of this toxin in the water is that it happens after the algae die. Mostly those toxins are released. Otherwise, they're in the cells. And so there's a little delay, right? Bacteria may cause infection over a couple days. Exposure to a high amount of these cyanotoxins could give you a rash right away, or other health problems. So, they're more of an acute issue. So that's the other thing that is monitored at beaches. The thing about those organisms, happy green, blue-green organisms, is that they like warmth and they like light and they like these nutrients and they like water that's still, right? Relatively still. So they grow in our lakes, but not often in our rivers where the water is flowing. Every once in a while,
when we're in a drought, maybe,
or backed up behind a dam. I'm really excited to see how the rivers change with all of these modifications, because I actually think there'll be more flow in Des Moines and we won't see so much of the gross water backing up behind it. So that's a concern for recreators. I haven't studied it nearly as much as the bacteria, but we started looking at those under the microscope, and they're beautiful.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
cool.
They're really beautiful. They're like little, like somebody dumped a handful of springs, like like the springs in your pen or something. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
They're like little pearls in a spiral.
Wow.
So they're beautiful, which is,
tricky.
And then you start to realize that there's so much more going on in that drop of water than we ever thought. And some of it maybe not so good, but a lot of it's just amazing. It's the bottom of our food chain, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's another organism that we've fallen in love with called diatoms. And they make their shell out of glass.
Oh.
Silica, right?
Oh my word. Yeah.
They're green, they photosynthesize, but they make their shell out of something transparent, and the shells are all different shapes.
Oh, wow.
And so they're really cool.
Wow.
And last but not least, there's some of these other, we have one called Vorticella that
sounds like a
sounds
delicious
like
pasta.
yes, right. I'm probably saying it wrong, and some microbiologist. No, actually, I think I probably am. But some microbiologist will yell at me later. But they have stems that retract, so they'll kind of look like a tulip that's opening up.
Wow.
And then you'll see the filtering the water, and even bacteria being kind of sucked into them. And then if something scares them, they'll retract.
Oh, that's so cool.
I know this is not helpful for recreation or drinking water necessarily, but I just think it's awesome.
Well, do you guys have a camera on you so you can see, you can record these things?
Yes. Wow. I have so many great recordings.
Is there any way we can get some of them?
Yes, absolutely. I will share them.
I would love to be able to do a blog post with those things on.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Drake is close to Whitmer Pond. Right? A lot of these basins in urban areas are great places to get cool samples. So
that's really cool.
Yeah. So we've found all sorts of things, and this is a new area for me. I started out studying volcanoes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Wow. And then I moved to earthquakes, and then I ended up in water. So now
specializing in poop.
Specializing in poop. Whoever wanted to Google themselves and get manure and their name over and over and over again, it was not me. That's how.
But we're so glad.
Yeah, seriously.
Right. It's fun.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I know we were talking about how you could have your own show just called Dr. Poop, and
Dr. Poop is Dan Anderson.
Oh,
Dr. Manure at Iowa State.
Oh,
Dan Anderson, and we went to graduate school together.
Oh.
We sat next to each other and talked about poop for 4 years. So
wow,
and
bonded ever since.
Yeah, exactly. We love this topic, but he specializes in all the technicalities of manure application.
Oh, okay.
And what we can do better on there. So
wow.
if you ever want someone to talk about manure, you can talk to
absolutely. We'll have to get him on for sure.
He knows his shit. Aha! Okay, I can say it.
You can say it. Explicit podcast. Ooh.
But yeah, I mean, there's other folks who like this stuff too.
Absolutely.
Fascinating. So.
Okay, Claire, last question. Several of our values are collaboration. I guess 2 of our values are collaboration and innovation. You've already talked about how you're a perpetual optimist, and I feel like we would also consider optimism as like maybe not a core value, but it's in there.
Yeah.
The Happy Disruptors.
Uh-huh.
How do you look at innovation and collaboration and as a researcher? Like, how does that apply to your work? And what would you say is sort of the benefit to having those be a part of your methodology?
Oh boy. No, I don't know. Maybe other people like working alone. I love working in a team, right? I love bouncing ideas off of other people. Drake is small, and so I have to reach outside of, our department, and, collaboration can take a lot of forms, but there's so much cool science being done, and it's behind a firewall for a lot of people. I think a lot of people would actually engage a lot more if they didn't have to pay to get access to an article or just have trouble finding them in the first place. But Google's getting better, right? Like Google Scholar, you can find, a lot more. There's more open source stuff. But if you look at those papers, you'll see 10, 12 scientists listed, right? None of this is in a vacuum. I didn't discover these, spiral-shaped cyanobacteria on my own, right? Like there's a ton of work, and I try to tell my students all the time, like, look at them. They're real people. They don't know everything. Yeah. They know what they don't know when they talk to an expert somewhere else. So we benefit a lot from talking to other scientists, other perspectives. It's really important. And not just scientists, but the practitioners, right? Right. I can do the science, but I'm not good at going out and telling you should do it this way, or, policy discussions. It's a different process, right? And so we depend on lawyers to do lawyery things, and, business people to understand, their role and all of that. So it's not just collaboration in science, but trying to understand that I like the science part. That's my role. Right. Yes. And then I work with other folks who can find ways to take that message.
Well, one of the projects that that you've worked on, and then part 2 is coming up that you're working on right now, I think illustrates that collaboration so well. So we studied, a certain watershed, identified that human, piece of the human E. coli, and then worked within that watershed to identify the sources. Yeah. And I think so now hopefully we'll see a reduction. We'll see what happens.
Science never gives us the answer we want packaged in the way we think, right? We'll learn something crazy and new. But I think, we can find the people who are good at the solutions. Right. And work with them. And then we can be the, let's go back and measure it. If I say this 1,000 times, they'll say, if you don't measure it, you can't tell the story. You can't say that you've been successful or not. So you have to measure it. But there's a ton of good people in the state working on this stuff, and everybody has a role to play. We're at a point where we have to decide if we're going to double down or not. Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, we're at that magic point, I think. Right. And I don't know exactly what that looks like. And I hope the conversations are a little bit more nuanced than regulation versus voluntary, right? Yeah. Can we talk about how we get there, and is there some minimum standard we hold everybody to? I feel bad for the farmers who have been out there working on this ahead of the trends, ahead of the funding, putting their own money into solutions, taking it seriously, protecting, the water their own kids drink, right? Yeah. And they didn't get any money or support or credit, right? And then we have, new projects coming along where we're adding and supplementing and all that. But let's figure out a way that everybody has to work a little bit harder, and then maybe take the pressure off or even the playing field. It's competitive, right? You're growing crops or livestock, and you have bills to pay. Like, if you're cutting corners and someone else isn't, it's not fair, or the other way around. Right. So, but
Yeah, and I think I agree with you that we're at this critical juncture, and there's a lot more interest. We're hearing a lot of uninformed opinions, but that gives us a chance to have a discussion. But I just hope that the sides don't retreat back and instead use this as an opportunity.
Yeah.
Because it is such an interwoven issue. As our whole discussion today, you've pointed to multiple scenarios where you maybe had a surprising piece. So we appreciate the role you're playing in helping educate and find these things out. So
Thank you. You guys are doing a lot of work on this as well, right? And so are, I don't know, a lot of other people.
Yeah.
And I do think there's some narratives in the state that are just old and tired.
Right. So tired.
So
tired.
I don't want to hear it anymore. If I have to hear it anymore, I'll go, paddle in Minnesota and let you guys figure it out. But I want us to just start fresh and sit down and nothing's off the table.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But we all recognize that farmers have to farm and make a living, and we all recognize that city budgets are tight.
Yeah.
Right. We all have our own responsibilities to, not expect everything when we recreate to be, perfect either. So, but we all do want to get outside.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It helps with all the rest. We would get off our phones a little bit.
Yeah.
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 Absolutely.
I mean, I think it's helpful. You live and breathe this and work this, every single day. You're recreating in the waterways. Same with us. My children are in the waterways too. So it's something that's definitely near and dear.
Personal. Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And it means it's worth it in time and
yes, absolutely.
One or two headaches, not too many headaches.
Yeah. Well, it's such a fun. There are fundamental interests just about across the board. You're talking about quality of life and public health and economic development, like whatever angle you're coming to the water with, there's value in prioritizing it and investing in it and figuring out a solution. Yeah. Excellent. Any final thoughts before we head into our segment we call Let's Whiteboard It?
Oh boy.
Are you going to make us do scientific equations or math or something?
Is it a test?
I felt inspired by all of the shapes, and I was like, well, maybe I'll have you guys draw your own bacteria and name it and talk about what it does, but I won't do that to you.
Is this what this is for?
Yeah.
So that's what this is for.
All right.
Yeah. So our final segment, Dr. Hruby, we love whiteboards at the Great Outdoors Foundation. Something tells me you're a whiteboard gal too.
I can handle
use it in the lab. Yeah. So what we do is we're all going to answer a question together. This feels a little ethereal and kind of hippy dippy a little bit. So
right up my alley.
What is one lesson that you think the water can teach us?
Oh,
sorry. Very squeaky marker.
I'm supposed to draw this?
You can draw, write, poem, haiku,
Boy.
I'm asking
Can
the
I
scientist.
just tell you a story for a second? That would be fantastic.
Yes, absolutely.
So
Please
on the
do.
way here,
Yeah.
I grew up going to the Mountain Waters every year. That was sort of my love for water, right? Is starting going on that family trip with my family every year, and I take my daughter. We're going in August every year.
Amazing.
But I was listening to a news story about a woman who paddles the Connecticut River, rowing, right? And I went to college in Connecticut, so I rowed on that same river, but she doesn't have, she can only do it with the power of her torso and her arms because she has no control of her legs.
Wow.
And how much strength it gave her to tackle other hard things in her life, just that she could do this thing on the water.
Wow.
And that almost made me cry on the way over here. But I think those outdoor adventures give us confidence in ourselves to handle strange situations,
Yeah.
right? My students find a snake when they're out, sampling. They have to handle a situation. Right? They meet a farmer and they have to figure out what to say, whatever it is, right? But it gives us the strength to deal with hard things. So that's okay. I will draw her rowing. There we go.
Okay.
That's my, oh my God, I don't know how to draw.
That's beautiful.
But yeah.
I have an unfortunate color for mine.
Oh dear. No, I should just draw her further away so the river is there. But I just heard that story on the way in. Of course, it was lovely, but
That is really lovely.
Get out there, see the river. If you don't want to get in, you can still look at it, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, while Hannah and Dr. Hruby are finishing up, just a reminder to like and subscribe to the Happy Disruptors podcast wherever you are listening. You can follow along on social and share this episode with someone who could benefit from learning from the incredible intellect and wisdom of Dr. Hruby. So thanks for joining us. Okay, who would like to go? Would you like to show
mine was
your
just the rowing girl.
Oh,
and
that's
I
really
can't
good.
You're a
judge.
talented artist as well.
Who knew?
Fantastic.
Do you guys play like the Pictionary and those games?
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
Oh man,
I love
all
it.
right.
So I'm not as good of an artist, and I had the color green for water. So this is not like a harmful algae bloom.
Oh,
but this is just the ripple effect of how everything is so interconnected in water, and that it really has no boundaries.
Yeah.
So we're all in it together, and it's going to take us all to work together to solve it.
I love it.
Yeah,
We're all getting tattoos when we leave.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
You have to do this
Exactly.
one in green.
Yes.
What was yours?
So mine is just childlike wonder. I feel like the water just has something that connects to, the child in all of us,
Yeah.
and gives us that appreciation and joy that, as an adult, you don't get a ton of opportunities to be a little kid.
I love taking my students just somewhere where they can skip rocks.
Yes.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, we might talk about the river at some point, but it's always been a thing. College students, I'm surprised they just don't get out,
Yeah.
off
Yeah.
campus, and they love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
20 years just of students skipping rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We never grow out of that, I don't
That's
think.
amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. So go out and
Fantastic.
skip rocks
Yes.
today.
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us, guys.